Welcome, everyone.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this important conversation on restorative justice. Our names are Drew, Daniela, John Aaron, Eliza, Elijah, Mary, and Gisette. And today we are here to talk about why restorative justice in schools is very important and should be funded appropriately. Restorative justice offers a caring alternative to punitive discipline and creates the environment youth needs to feel supported and to be able to thrive. Hold on one second, I'm sorry. Something I can definitely say is true in my case because I found a home the people and foundation restorative justice has provided for not only in my life, in my personal life, but my school's life and the community that's in it.
Currently, our city council is proposing a $59 million for restorative justice, which we are encouraged by. However, we, the youth, the Dignity in Schools campaign, New York, and other progressive organizations are asking for $75 million to hire school-based restorative justice coordinators and $10 million directly for schools to offer restorative justice trainings, to fund restorative justice events, and pay youth like us to be involved by restorative justice. At least in our school, we have been kind of directly trying to fight for this, as we have had a lot of restorative justice coordinators in our schools, like Martine and someone in our school named Ogemdi. They have been a big help to us in our community, and they have kind of helped brighten our school day.
Right now, we have $20 million allocated in the budget, but the mayor and the DOE have essentially frozen these funds. Current programs can't continue or expand without more funding. For the last decade, DSC New York has been working with the City Council to achieve funding for restorative justice in schools. Unfortunately, we haven't seen these programs funded appropriately, and we need this administration and council to commit to expanding restorative justice to all schools. At my school, which has over 1,000 kids, we only have one restorative justice coordinator who's also a teacher. Because of her lack of capacity, the level of restorative justice that's actually implemented into our school is limited. Sometimes our coordinator isn't available to attend to a conflict since she's teaching, and other times she has to leave class to deal with an issue. Because of our lack of funding, our school's restorative justice program doesn't have the capacity to fully serve all students. Most of the time, my school ends up turning to more punitive measures because the majority of our staff isn't trained in RJ.
Okay, so to start off with the first question, the panelists and I will share some of the restorative justice work they are doing in their own schools.
That's going to be EJ starting.
Okay. So some restorative justice work that has been done in my school has been to mediate mediate fights, have conversations of like how to go about it better and like what could have been done differently. There's been 2 incidents in my school, both involved me getting into an altercation with other schools, and the RJ staff held mediations with me and the other students, and we had understanding of like what could have been done better and what was like the reason of why we almost fought, instead of like just like getting suspended, and that would have been it.
In terms of my schools, we participate in fundraisers, rallies, and even like restorative justice on our own with like something we call fairnesses, where we have meetings between 2 or maybe more, even a class, sometimes even a class size of people that need help with the harm that's been done in their community, and to help out the overall schools community so that we can just come back as better people. And yeah.
Now we have John Aaron.
Sorry, thank you. I would like to pose a question. Why is restorative justice important to schools?
Um, I'd say for my school, restorative justice is really important because we want to steer away from those punitive actions. We want students to feel safe and like listened to in our schools. I feel like restorative justice does a very good job of allowing people to be themselves and just allowing people to feel free within their school to speak what they want, to say what they want, and to also just feel like a family as a whole. I just feel like restorative justice brings everyone together and just kind of creates a community that everyone knows each other.
We're passing it to Elijah.
Okay. Our restorative justice is important. Well, the reason I believe restorative justice is important is because it helps teachers and students understand like how to avoid problems and also how to like mitigate problems in different outlets, as well as giving teachers like a better understanding of like where the students are coming from when it comes to like dealing with aggression, depression, and like other issues that's going on internally and issues in their community as well.
Adding on to Elijah, I also think that restorative justice is important and needed in schools. Usually, when we think about restorative justice, we think about solving a problem or harm that has already been caused. But I feel like restorative justice practices are rooted in healthy relationships and how to maintain them. And this is a type of knowledge that many youth don't have access to, and through restorative justice in schools, it exposes them to it, and it becomes an existing preventative measure before harm can even be caused.
Our next question is, what can you and your schools do with more funding?
With more funding at my school, we could be able to have more staff members who can bring restorative justice practices to our schools, as well as more trips that could help kids work on important skills outside of just academics. Also, with bringing more restorative justice specialists into schools, it could create other ways to deal with the situation other than just being disciplined.
Yeah, so with more funding, my school could give restorative justice the time and resources that it deserves so that all of our students could experience different ways of resolving conflict and community building. For example, my school doesn't have a peer mediation program, even though we do have a restorative justice program coordinator. And but like a lot of the work falls on like volunteer students to do the work of like managing the restorative justice program at our school. um but with more funding, like we could really get support from staff, and the restorative justice coordinator would be able to solely focus on making the school a more safe and transformative space, which is definitely not happening yet, just because of the limited resources. And with the $75 million that's being advocated for, each school could hire school-based restorative justice coordinators that train more teachers in it. And additionally, $10 million directly to schools that would allow them to offer RJ trainings for teachers, guidance counselors, social workers, and climate and culture staff.
Our next question is for all panelists to answer. It is, how does RJ make you feel? Whoever wants to start first.
I can go first. Restorative justice makes me feel that the world is actually movable and that growth is possible for anybody.
RJ makes me feel like I have more options and as well more space to feel how I want to other than the way I need to. And it's important to know that I can use this in certain situations so I don't feel like I'm trapped and just stuck into this one space.
I'd say RJ makes me feel like when there are conflicts, the root of the issue has actually begun to be addressed instead of just a band-aid fix, like a suspension that can often create more harm than good. In spaces where restorative justice is practiced, I feel like my voice and feelings can really make a positive impact on the community. And I think that going to a middle school that practiced a lot of RJ helped me grow a lot in my understanding of interpersonal relationships and taught me the importance of honest community conversations. Now going to a school that I practice RJ less, I see the impacts it has on our strength as a community. And I would definitely love to see us continue to grow. But we can't do that without more funding.
I'll go next. I think restorative justice makes me feel like there's room to grow for everyone. It also makes me feel like I have like a lot of patience, because in a sense, restorative justice makes the job more difficult. But because of the difficultness of the job, it gives like a proper resolution for the harm done, instead of like a punishment that the one person, a part of the harm, can't handle, or even the other person can't handle because they didn't expect that to happen. So I feel like it's a diligent process, and I feel like it's something that you have to take a lot of care and focus on, but it definitely works out in the end, and it really does show growth between the people in the harm and the people mediating the harm.
Okay, I'll go next. RJ makes me feel that uh, gives students like as a secondary. It gives students a secondary option to like express their feelings. Like they can go to a RJ coordinator and like request for a counselor and give them, and like and that counselor can give them advice on what to do next, and as well as like talk to the teacher and like tell the teacher like what that particular student would need from them to like help the student thrive in their classrooms.
Did everyone go for this question? Or is there still someone that needed to go?
Um, uh, sorry, I would like to pose one more question. When you think of restorative justice, what do you think in terms of like how you would like to operate in a restorative justice space, and how would you like people to come to a restorative justice space to kind of feel connected?
Can you say the question one more time, John Aaron?
My question was, when you guys are talking about restorative justice and you guys are in a restorative justice space, how would you like people to come to how would you like people to come to a restorative justice space and kind of interact with one another like we're doing kind of right now?
I'd like to say for everyone to come with an open mind, because if you come in with your mind made up on a situation, or like with the kind of like reason to argue or reason to not like want to fix a problem, it doesn't help anyone in the situation, and it especially doesn't help you, because now it's a bigger situation that you can't handle. It's bigger than the two people in the room or even the mediator. So I feel like if you come in with an open mind and like ready to listen, in a sense, you can still have your own opinions about it, but if you come in ready to listen to the other person, I think something can happen and movement can be made.
Adding on to what Drew said, because it's like the same thing. Just come into this space to learn and kind of listen to other people, and don't just only think about yourself in the situation. Because RJ is like, there's so many like techniques and things you could do in that space. So to come there and not be open-minded or not being ready to learn, it's not really gonna contribute anything to the problem or whatever is like the situation is.
For me, I personally really like the talking piece because it tells you who is talking and who isn't. So it gives that ground of like respect and accountability for people who might be over talking or like not listening to the person who's meant to be talking. And I feel like it's a really good way to figure out that level of respect within restorative justice spaces.
I think that it's really important to come into restorative conversations with the intention of really being honest. I think that restorative conversations like don't work when people aren't honest, and they're a lot more productive when people share how they really feel, even if there might be disagreements. It's all a necessary part of the process.
Yeah, I feel like when talking about restorative justice spaces, one of the goals that at least we try to have when kind of following that kind of rule is we want people to feel comfortable, or at least as comfortable as it might be, because with that we can kind of open up and we can come together talking about the things that we might not want to talk about, and then come together more as a community.
I feel like as a restorative justice community, when people come in, I'd want them to have an open mind and just a willingness to learn. Restorative justice, when you're going into it, is quite difficult to understand, especially when you're used to, regular practices as most schools do, or communities as a whole. I feel like I'd like people to be open-minded, they'd be willing to learn, and just want to have a good time. Don't be there to be like, oh, this is a learning lesson. Be there to be like, oh, I want to be there with this community. I want to learn more and just overall have fun with them.
This is kind of one more question. When talking about like having people inside your community, like we all have our different experiences doing fairnesses or doing mediations. What's kind of like the best way that you have, or kind of like tactics I like to say, to kind of get people out of their shell or to kind of be more participatory when doing these sort of things, no matter if it's in a mediation or a circle or just like a group discussion? Do you guys have any kind of ways to kind of get people out of their shell to be more talkative?
I think that one helpful thing that has happened at like the beginning of like every mediation that I've been a part of anyways, is like just like prefacing it with saying like you're not in trouble. We're here to like have a conversation, not to like find something out that we will be punitive about. I think that taking away that like fear that people have allows them to be a lot more open.
I think getting people comfortable in the space is really important before we start like doing anything. So I believe like hands-on like activities or like a share out, an opener to get people relating to each other or see their differences and figure out how to reach a common ground.
I really like what Gisette said, like get people calm, because I know a lot of time, like when I've ever been in like a mediation, I always felt like I was in trouble right away, even though I might have not have been. So it's a very tense space because you feel like you're coming into space and you feel like you're already in trouble or you're already gonna be attacked. So to have people feel more calm, and when people feel more calm and centered, they're gonna be able to express themselves truly and be honest about the issue at hand.
At least for me, one of the things kind of I like to do when we have like mediations or circles is we kind of do a little bit of like kind of like getting to know the person before. So if we have two people kind of like meeting to like hammer out like a conflict, we will meet with the two parties separately to kind of get their perspective of the story, so that when the two people meet in the room and kind of try to talk it out, we kind of have the kind of repertoire to fall back on to see, oh wow, this is what this person said happened, this is what this person said happened, so we can kind of bring them together even if they might not want to talk.
Okay, and now I want to open the conversation up to our viewers watching. So with a little Q&A, and I believe Martine would like to start us off with the first question.
Hey all, welcome, welcome. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here in this beautiful youth-led roundtable. Snaps and appreciation and love and cherishment for the youth doing it. So I have a question that I would like to get talking, and my fellow adults and fellow council members and policymakers, if you have a few questions, please, this is the time to do it. One question that I always have around restorative justice is that people actually don't understand what restorative justice is. And since we're calling for funding, I think it's people don't want to spend money on things that they don't understand what it is, right? Like I find myself like, if I don't know what something is, I'm not buying it. And so I wonder if a couple of youth could give us our definitions of what does restorative justice mean to you? And so our folks who are going to be making decisions at the city council based on the budget and are going to be calling for our $85 million of support that we are calling for, they can better understand. So I am going to pass it to Daniela, and then Daniela will pass it to a couple of other people. You can just choose on people because everyone's definition is important and everyone's definition is valid, and that's kind of how we create meaning. We all make it together.
Okay, I'm sorry for that camera flip. I'm trying to entertain a kitten right now. So my definition of restorative justice would be to come together with everyone and to just create a community where everyone feels safe and like they feel like they could be relied on. With the restorative justice, we try to steer away from you did this, you did that, you're getting punished. So we try to keep it cordial. Restorative justice is all about community building, keeping peace with one and just as a whole, in my opinion, just getting to know other people and having fun with each other, because it's not about, oh, you did this wrong. It's about getting to know one another and building a family that you never knew you could have. And I'll pass it to Mari.
So restorative justice to me is just like what Danielle said, like just being able to like kind of talk to each other and have this kind of space. Because I see it's mostly needed a lot in high schools because you're dealing with a larger amount of people, and with that it could cause a lot of conflict. So not having like restorative justice specialists being in that space to help people, to help like the students like with the situation, or just being disciplined, it's not really teaching them anything, especially for for high schoolers, because we're gonna get ready to go out into the outside world and be adults, and we need these practices to learn how to be, you know, be ourselves and know that we could express ourselves and not always feel attacked. So it's like really, it's really needed for these for high schools. Like, yes, it is in middle schools as well, but it's more needed for this larger space of people. I will pass it to Giuseppe.
Thank you, Mari. I feel like my definition of restorative justice is surrounded around personal growth and community healing, which is something that many high school students aren't exposed to or don't have the opportunity to be in that space. And so like right now we're here in this space talking about restorative justice, but somewhere around New York City where high school students don't have this kind of opportunity, they don't know what restorative justice is, and they don't know how to deal with conflict, with building healthy relationships and having that community with them to support them. And so I feel like that's what restorative justice is really about: community healing, support, and bringing people together. And I'll like to pass it on to Eliza.
Yeah, I think that like what everyone has said has pretty much summed it up, but like I think that the biggest part for me is just like on top of not responding to conflicts in a punitive way, um creating a stronger base of a community, that like everyone feels supported, like by each other, and like people have connections, like throughout differences. um yeah, and I will pass it to who hasn't gone yet. Has anyone not gone yet?
I haven't.
Okay, yeah, I'll pass it to that.
Um, my definition of restorative justice is, I don't think I have a clear definition, but I think it's something that is good to do because it gives the youth more power in the situation. Because the school is run by like adults in the sense of like they're teaching us, they're trying to show us the way of like things that we can learn to like move on forever in our lives. But I feel like with restorative justice, it really gives an opportunity for children to speak up, and like teens, and even like even it can go as little kids to just like say what they truly feel instead of making it something that an adult feels and they have to feel it because the adult feels that way in the situation. I think if every one of the panelists went, I would like to move the Q&A to any of the people watching this Zoom right now. Do you guys have any questions?
I'll jump in. I have a question. And actually it's jumping off of what you're saying, Drew, which is giving youth power, which I really liked your definition, Drew. And I think that I see Stefina's comment here about how important this work is and how much awareness and experience already is in the room. And yes, we oftentimes think about restorative justice as coordinators and staff positions, but I would just love to hear from you all, who've been talking in such great depth about what it means and how it makes you feel, about why it's so important to have your leadership, and why it's important for you to also get paid for this work, and be the ones that help shape what restorative justice can look like in the schools.
Well, I think that at the root of restorative justice is like looking into the community for solutions, for problems in the community. And I think that in New York City public schools, like we as a students, we do know what is going on best. We know how like we as the students feel about a number of issues. And without our voices, like we're not going to find full holistic solutions to issues we're seeing in schools. And as students, also, we have like our whole lives at school that we work on. So to do restorative justice work is like it takes time and energy, and labor. And that's why it's just really important that we also get compensated for the work that we do in bettering our school communities.
I think in terms of why we should get paid for this work and just how important it is, it's just the fact that we are people that's willing to put in the work no matter how hard it is. Sometimes it's the work is really not even meant for us. Sometimes we are pushed in it and kind of just shoved in that and shoved into the right direction by some of our teachers and some of our leaders who did it before us, and we kind of thank them. But then we have also taken this in a completely different path in terms of how we do it and how well we do it, in terms of the level we are willing to reach out to different communities, and how we are ready to kind of bring everyone together and do this amazing thing that we are doing right now. So yeah.
I also feel like it's important for to have youth in the like front of it, because we know, like what Eliza said, we know what's going on, and a lot of adults to have this like old school way of thinking about certain situations. And I feel like having a like a current like a more a fresh opinion about like what's needing to go on is better, because we know what's happening and what's going on. And plus we need to get paid, because it's very tiring work to put yourself in the front and be the voice. So sometimes we need to get compensated for that, because we're putting our energy out there to help. So it would be like kind of wrong for us not to get as money for that.
I can answer that question actually. I feel like as restorative justice people, well, youth, we are a representative of New York City public high schools, which is really important. And I feel like we should definitely get confiscated for it, because leadership roles takes a lot of work, especially factoring in hundreds, even thousands of high school students, their perspectives, and their opinion on things. We are basically the role to pivot and lead what we want to see in our own communities. And that takes work.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I would like to thank Drew, my fellow moderator. She definitely put in her work, and everyone else who joined us today. I would just like to shout out a few organizations that took their time to be here today. I would like to thank Dignity in Schools, Circle Keepers, Restorative Justice Initiative, Integrate NYC, Base High School, and the Yaya Network. I appreciate the panelists too, your willingness to share and just speak out on everything that you guys have done and your experiences within restorative justice. We hope and we can all see how passionate you guys are about restorative justice and the benefits it brings to our schools and our communities. But most importantly, to the leaders and to city council leaders in the room, please don't forget all the amazing work we could do if you guys had a part. Sorry. So if you guys had a part in restorative justice. One more thing, the link to the DSC's demand and campaign goals will be shared by Andrea. And thanks again for everyone who came to join us today. We appreciate all you guys' help and willingness to speak. Thank you. Clap it up, I guess.
Great job, y'all. Thank you so much.